What, in your opinion, is a realistic solution to gun violence in the United States? There's a model used in risk analysis called the Swiss cheese model. In short, every tactic that you throw at a problem will be like a slice of Swiss cheese. Each hole in the slice of cheese is an opportunity for the problem to still slip through. Some slices will have more holes in than others, but if you have enough slices stacked, you won't have any holes. So it's not just one solution that's needed, it's lots of solutions, all working together. Some may be less directly effective, such as restricting lobbying, some may be more directly effective, such as making background checks 100% required in all cases. In cybersecurity, this is called defense in depth. It's a classic military defense strategy too. In military terms, it is what they are doing right now. The concept of defense in depth implies that there is territory you can afford to lose, territory that is not valuable and will spread the enemy, break up its cohesion and drain its supply. This less than valuable territory is the public school system. As long as the elites can avoid these hotspots, they will be treated like acceptable losses. When most of the problematic children are put into the same system, even better in low-income areas, it is easy to avoid these risky areas. Defense in depth is applied right now, it's just not us who are valuable. Yikes. That makes a lot of sense, but I don't like it at all. Basically, to enact change, these shootings need to be affecting the rich and powerful and not just us lowly peasants. That's the only way it can possibly go, on any topic, when you've got a wealthy class so wildly richer than the rest of society that they can isolate themselves from. Well, from whatever issue. Gun violence? Climate change? Poverty? Nothing needs to be done, because no one they know will ever be affected. They are gearing to literally abandon the ducking planet. We are beyond fucked. Nah, once they abandon the planet, they can't stonewall us anymore and actual progress can happen. Angrily shaking fist at sky and stay gone Zuckerberg. Not sure why I visualized this coming from Futurama's Bender XD. I sound like Bernie here, but taking money out of politics would solve most problems. From the lack of sensible gun control to the insane cost of healthcare. Take the money out. Don't allow the ducking politicians to lobby after retirement. Said realistic. Sadly, anything getting done is pretty unrealistic until there is a big shift in power to the people. Imagine telling people in the 1970s that only a small percentage of people would be smoking in 30 to 40 years. Big things can happen. The problem is Congress is held up by minority rule from even taking small steps. Congress passed a ban of smoking on planes in 1990 and the ball started rolling. I'm old enough to remember when people smoked while grocery shopping. You couldn't ever admit you were LGBTQ. You couldn't smoke weed legally. Progress does happen, but steps need to be taken. Not all by Congress either. The problem is twofold though. First, none of those things were an amendment. Second, you don't have a political action group whose sole purpose is to say no to reform. Those two things together have turned gun ownership into a cult amongst certain segments of the population. What, you don't think that calling for better mental health care and then refusing to fund better mental health care is working? Who could have predicted that? We've tried nothing and we're out of options. No way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens. Another Onion aficionado. I would argue their staff writers have a far better chance of creating a solution to gun violence than any of the guillotine bait in Washington. Change the media culture, stop publishing names and pictures of shooters, increase mental health awareness and risk assessment when someone wants to own a firearm. Do actual background checks. Well, for starters, make sure your local police force isn't made up of a gang of cowards. How dare you expect police to waste their time stopping mass murder? They have speeding tickets to write and drug kingpins to arrest for having a dime bag in their car. In case it isn't obvious. If they weren't writing tickets, how would they afford all the guns to lean against outside the schools as kids are being shot up inside? Don't forget about stopping parents from going in to save the kids. Everyone is arguing that it's a mental health issue, but there are people with mental health issues and shit healthcare all over the world and this still doesn't happen. I think the States needs a huge culture shift. And the vast majority of people who have mental health issues in the US are not violent. I agree it's mainly a cultural problem. The government can't fix radicalization or the glorification of violence. Better gun laws can help too, but it's a cultural issue. A school shooting is the ugly culmination of multiple facets of established American society failing. A single solution would mean a complete overhaul of countless modern systems. Indeed, the whole idea that there is no one solution is what people who don't really want this to be sorted out rely upon. Every time this sort of thing happens and people talk about solutions, they demand you give them a solution, pretending to care and be engaged. Then they can easily point out the one you've suggested won't fix the problem, make out that you're eating everyone's time and are stupid, and nothing changes. A multi-pronged solution. It's a mental health issue, yes, it is. We need gun control, yes, we do. We need to stop bullying, yes, we do. I think too many people are just looking for one solution. We have to prioritize short-term versus long-term goals. This won't change immediately. People realizing two very important facts that have become painfully clear in the last 4 years: the government does not care about you. They will not protect you or your children. Law enforcement does not care about you. They will not protect you or your children. No one is coming to save you. Act accordingly. No one will come to save you. But they'll come right soon to punish you. Term limits on all senators and House representatives. Also, make lobbying illegal. I figure about 20 more posts asking this exact same question will pretty much solve it. Depends. If you mean most gun violence, stop gang and drug activity, aka legalize drugs so gangs have nothing to sell. If you mean mass shootings, probably more programs to feel connected to your neighborhood and community. People with something to take care of rarely destroy things. This is an important distinction, because school shootings, as terrible as they are, do not represent the majority of gun violence, yet they get the most amount of coverage. So I get bothered when people get up and make their speeches about these kids from a nice neighborhood, but yet not a word on all the countless victims picked off one at a time every single day. Like, who do you really care about? This is an important distinction, because school shootings, as terrible as they are, do not represent the majority of gun violence, yet they get the most amount of coverage. So I get bothered when people get up and make their speeches about these kids from a nice neighborhood, but yet not a word on all the countless victims picked off one at a time every single day. Like, who do you really care about? This. Shit, I thought I was the only one who noticed this. I'm glad to see someone else did. In 2020, suicide is the #1 cause of death by firearms, and assault weapons were used in less than 3% of firearms homicides. But, because schools and children were involved, the news coverage is all over it. Local man kills self doesn't make a great headline the way shooter kills school kids does. In short, it's not about actual gun violence statistics, so much as what the news splashes on sites for people to see. I agree it is sad and tragic that people were killed, but news sites only report on stuff that gets the most clicks, like mass shootings. Edit to add, in 2021, the leading cause of firearm deaths? Suicide, again. I get that this is the internet, and hence 5,000 people have expressed a mostly non-expert opinion, but there are actual public health experts in gun violence, mental health, and injury prevention science that politicians should take policy direction from. Wicked problems require complex, systemic, and science-based solutions. Whatever the solution, we have to ask ourselves what is different about America versus the rest of the world? All countries have mental health issues. All have economic cycles that disadvantage some people. All have bullies. Etc. Whatever is causing these shootings is uniquely American. The whole "don't make the shooters famous" argument doesn't tackle the root of the problem. It implies that there are already psychos who exist who just need inspiration to go on a rampage. We need to figure out why there are psychos and where they're coming from, what they're watching to make them that way. There are no new ideas. Columbine put the idea of school shooting into circulation. It also put the idea of fame from school shooting into circulation. There's no easy way to get it out of circulation, but news media suppression of culprits' identity is a genuine strategy. Reduce the social contagion with less stimulating reporting. Honestly, there isn't a realistic solution. Guns are too baked into our culture and guaranteed by our Constitution, which may kinda go hand in hand. You'd be asking too many people to give up their rights, and that just won't gain the popularity to be feasible. We can take incremental steps. We can require background checks for private sales, for instance. But I'm just not sure there's anything that can be done to reduce numbers enough that it acts as a silver bullet, no pun intended. If you're looking at school shootings specifically, that's even more complicated. These were barely an issue at all until the mid-late 90s. You would have to look at what's changed in that time. Guns haven't become more accessible, so the evidence doesn't point to that being a cause. I don't know what the answer is.